Okay, so we are recording this. We would like to thank our ASL sponsors, Rev Up Texas, San Antonio Interpreting, and several candidates citywide, even knowing they wouldn't be publicly recognized for this gift, who chose to support this effort tonight. Thank you for joining us, the Partners in Disability vote this evening for the Conversation 365, the vote and disability. This session is being recorded and will be posted to Disability SA website, YouTube channel, and social media platforms following tonight's conversation. We are here tonight with candidates running in the District 8 City Council race, which we held on Saturday, May 1st. The deadline to register to vote is Thursday, April 1st. If you do not live in District 8 and would like to move to a different room, please select the Leave Room button option, and volunteers in the main room will assist you. We will begin with pre-submitted questions and then entertain questions from the floor if time allows. For this district, we anticipate being able to get through 11 to 12 questions. Let me remind the candidates for the form guidelines, which were emailed in advance, and emphasize that responses directed at the candidates or to other candidates is not a good thing. So this is a forum, not a debate. We're just wanting your responses to the questions. So let's get started and get to know our candidates. The first question will go to Mr. Garcia. You will have 2 minutes. On the first question, it's 2 minutes. On all the other questions coming up, they're 1 minute responses. So Mr. Garcia will go first, and I do have a timer here, and I will let you know when to start, and I will try and give you the orange ticket so that you know you've got like 10 seconds left. So if you would like to take 2 minutes and introduce yourself and include why you are running for office and why the disability vote is important to you. Okay. Go ahead and start.
Okay, good evening. My name is Cesario Garcia. I've lived here for 24 years in the city of San Antonio. I come here by way of the United States military. My father retired in 2003, so I've been here since 1996 because my father moved us here from Germany. I'm a small business owner. I've lived and I've worked here in this city. I've also worked around the state. I've also worked in conjunction with the state of Texas when it comes to educating people about my business, which is, well, not my business, but the business of video production. So I've had the opportunity to work with various departments when it comes to video production here locally, with the city, with the state. And I've enjoyed living here thus far. And this is the biggest, smallest town I've lived in my entire life. And like I said, I'm a military brat. So I've lived all over the world growing up as a kid and being cultured in various nations and countries when it comes to the military, being a brat rather, not part of the military, but being a brat and living the life that I've been blessed to live since I am adopted, and I'm also Native American. So I've had the opportunity to actually enjoy working here, living here, and also being able to befriend a lot of individuals who've worked in the city, state, and also on the federal level. But this is my home now, and I'm going to be here for until, I don't know, maybe till the God punches the clock for me. So, and the reason I'm running, I guess, basically is because we have an accountability, an outreach, and a spending problem, and also a safety problem. So those three facets work together when it comes to actually living in this city. So much has changed over the past 20 years. And I was talking to one group of people that 20 years ago, I worked on Miss Congeniality, when the city of San Antonio actually promoted video production and had it where it was a business and not just something to farm work and jobs out when it comes to people living in the city. Because we've had a lot of projects here that we primarily outsourced the main key jobs to California and the East Coast. So thank you. My name is Cesario Garcia.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Pelaez. Mr. Pelaez, same question. Introduce yourself and include why you are running for office and why the disability vote is important to you. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, Jane. It's nice to see you again. I have been your city councilman now for 4 years in this northwest sector of San Antonio. Tonight, in about 10 minutes, I've got a homeowners association meeting. So I've got a hard stop, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell you all that I work around the clock. I've got a staff whose one and only instruction is to do equity, and to do equity before above all other things. So we have been working very, very hard on making sure that our budget reflects that value, that we've been working hard that our everyday activities and our priorities reflect that all of our votes that we take on city council reflect those values. And it's sometimes the little things that seem that everybody else takes for granted that really are big things. So I'm proud to say that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just this year and millions of dollars last year making sure that our parks and our sidewalks are more ADA accessible. And in that same spirit, that's how I make a living. I'm an attorney. I'm an employer, and I represent employees and employers in ADA, religious accommodation, disability accommodation, and FMLA accommodation disputes. And I make sure that employers live up to the spirit of the ADA, the FMLA, the ADEA, Title VII, and I make sure that employees gain access and reasonable accommodations. But that's just the minimum. Those are the floors. I run my business and I work with employers to make sure that they go above and beyond. And that's how I feed my children, is making sure that equity is something that we do around the clock. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Rodriguez, the same question. Introduce yourself and include why you're running for office and why the disability vote is important to you. Yeah.
Sure. Great. Yeah, my name's Rob Rodriguez. I'm a native of San Antonio, and I've been a job creator in Texas for over 25 years. I'm a little empathetic to the disability community. One of my last businesses I owned was a healthcare company. It was a home health company. We had about 110, 120 employees, and we took care of a lot of disabled people in their homes. So I know how important mobility is for them. I'm also a disabled vet. I've been rated pretty high disability with the Veteran Affairs Administration. I'm running for city council basically because I want to increase affordability in district aid by increasing the homestead tax exemption. I also want to help small businesses. 39% of our businesses, small businesses, have disappeared since COVID, and we need to get back to bringing them back. And then, of course, infrastructure and public safety. I'm here asking you for your vote because I think that's part of the role of a city councilman, to be inclusive, to be listening to the voters, and then to also be empathetic of their needs. I'll be the last one to tell you I know everything that is affecting the disability community, but I promise that I'll have an honest and empathetic conversation with you and understand your position on things. Thank you.
Okay, the next question goes to Mr. Pelias first. And I'll read the question and then start the clock. So everyone has 1 minute from here out. Currently, a lack of disability data impacts the ability to remove barriers for equitable equality of life for those living with a disability. How would you work to ensure a disability identifier question is added to all city surveys, applications, and other forms where other optional demographic questions like race, ethnicity, age, gender, LGBTQ identity, income are collected?
Yeah, so I want to remind folks that the city manager runs the city, but he works for the city council. And really what you're asking for is just something that the city council needs to vote on. We mandate a lot of things. This is a no cost, no brainer option. And my commitment is to make sure that all future questionnaires, Speak Up SA, surveys, and forms collect that data so that we can then use that data to inform all our future decisions. That makes perfect sense, and we should have been doing that. And I will be doing that going forward.
Thank you. Same question, and this goes to Mr. Rodriguez. I'm going to read the question again. because it was a little long.
Okay.
Currently, a lack of disability data impacts the ability to remove barriers for equitable quality of life for those living with a disability. How would you work to ensure a disability identifier question is added to all city surveys, applications, and other forms where other optional demographic questions like race, ethnicity, age, gender, LGBTQ, identity, income are collected?
Sure. I guess the first thing I would do is seek input and direction from organizations that advocate for people with disabilities to structure the language for a disability question to insert in city surveys, applications, and other forms. And then I'd probably work in a collaborative effort with my council colleagues and the city departments to implement the changes. That's how I'd do it.
Okay, thank you. The same question to Mr. Garcia. I'll read it again, just in case. Currently, a lack of disability data impacts the ability to remove barriers for an equitable quality of life for those living with a disability. How would you work to ensure a disability identifier question is added to all city surveys, applications, and other forms where other optional demographic questions like race, ethnicity, age, gender, LGBTQ, identity, and income are collected?
Well, I would work with a couple of different entities locally, the Unicorn Center, one of them, and that'd be naming one of them. I would actually have their input and visit with them, see what they suggest. And I would definitely partner with finding out how we can distribute that literature for those to learn more. And I think it's all about education and use an edutainment apparatus, educational entertainment for people to learn more and to apply that information accordingly. That's what I would do.
Thank you. This next question goes to Mr. Rodriguez first. And it is, how do you see your district's office working better with our disability community on a city level?
Well, I mean, just like any organization, I mean, I'd examine what we were doing now, what Councilman Pelaez was doing, and how we could improve on that. I'd also ask for input, again, from the disability community on how we can improve our communications with these folks. I mean, every citizen has a right to be heard and to be represented equally by their elected representative. So that's how I'd approach that.
You guys are easy. Every time I set this, it doesn't work. The second I don't set it, you will just go off. I don't know. So I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it until it just makes sense. Okay. The same question to Mr. Garcia.
Well, I would equally, like I said, I would basically try to find a way to, I would partner with the apparatuses that are available. I would come up with a better solution than we had during this last winter storm. I think that was a ball drop, a missed opportunity to give people information so they can have a better outreach. I guess for me, it just, yeah, that's what I would do. I would basically kind of make sure that people had the right information available to them, so we could have a better hold on what's going on. I mean, that's what I would do when it comes to something like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Pelaez, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay. I would continue to do what we've been doing for the past 4 years. We hold very few meetings at our field office. We go to you. I bring to the table a philosophical belief that we need to go to meet the constituent where the constituent is at, as opposed to asking the constituent to go out of their way to meet me. And so we go to your home, we go to your work, we go to your neighborhoods. I spend almost every evening of the last 4 years visiting with people wherever they are, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will go to Mr. Garcia first. There are many areas in District A that have poor lighting, making it difficult for people, especially those with mobility devices, to move around at night. Take the next minute to talk about how you might work to prioritize safety for district residents when working to bring funds into the district to increase lighting, sidewalk repairs and gaps. You have 1 minute.
Well, first off, I would make sure that the right people that I'm meeting with when it comes to a contractor knows and sits down with a round table of people that have issues with their streets. Because I had a gentleman that said that there's a lot of, when there's a lot of places that they can't see where they're going, or they can't see when it comes to sidewalks. I would make sure that we partner with those citizens that are in that area and make sure that the contractors there or the persons there that can help better fix or repair any of the problems they may have. That's the first thing I do. Engagement, public engagement, for sure. You got to find out what the problems is, how to mitigate it, and how to solve it. So that was the main thing that I think it would do, is just make sure that if there is a problem, we solve it together. We make sure that we have someone there that actually will do the heavy lifting and solve it right then and there, and not have to worry about having to chase people around for answers. Just make sure that someone's available with that group in that neighborhood if there's a broader stroke, and just go from there. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Polias, would you like me to read the question again?
No, it's okay. We would continue to do exactly what we've been doing for the past 4 years, which is we've been mapping the entire district sidewalk network to identify those sidewalks that are not friendly to strollers and sidewalk travelers who are on wheelchairs. Second thing we've done is we've mapped the entire network of lighting, and we've created a innovation zone in the medical center where we're trying out new lighting technology for free. We're inviting companies to test out their lighting options for us as in an innovation zone, a pilot ground, proving ground. That's working out quite nicely, and we're going to be picking the right vendor probably in the next few months to be able to start installing some very low smart lights for the entire district, so people can feel safer and they can traverse their neighborhoods and not have to guess where they're going. Instead, they'll be able to see where they're going. And then this is my hard stop, y'all. I hope you have a great evening. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read the question again?
Yeah, that was a pretty long question, please.
Yeah. Many areas in District A have poor lighting, making it difficult for people, especially those with mobility devices, to move around at night. Take the next minute to talk about how you might work to prioritize safety for district residents when working to bring funds into the district to increase lighting, sidewalk repairs, and gaps. You have 1 minute.
Sure. Well, the first thing I would do, of course, is work with the HOAs and the respective neighborhoods to look where there are deficiencies in lighting, and then, of course, with the disability community to examine that. I'd review the mapping plan that's already been done, that Councilman Polias has done, and see where we can make improvements on that. Part of the issue with me on the equity funding is that when grant dollars and things come down from federal and state funds, to do things like this, it should be distributed equally among the districts, not on an equity basis. So I would fight for those dollars to make those kind of infrastructure improvements.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Polias isn't here. Mr. Rodriguez, you're the next one up for the next question.
Oh, no.
So
Okay.
with now it's just going to go back and forth. But I feel a little bit easier with the time. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to use the timer because I think we can have a better conversation and I don't have to be worried about pressing buttons. So, and there's just the two of you responding now. So this is question number 5. And as I said before, it goes to Mr. Rodriguez. With 13.2% of San Antonians living with a disability, I'd like to hear from each of you your thoughts on some targeted efforts you would put into place to ensure there is equitable access to the workforce development programs. Go ahead.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I got into the race, that SA Ready to Work program. It looks like the way they're going to allocate those funding, it's going to exclude quite a bit of folks in District 8 because we just don't live in the right demographic areas. What I'd probably do with that commission is I would fight for maybe a subcommittee of disabled persons to work with the larger committee to see how we can expand job force development among the disability community. I mean, when I had healthcare companies, we employed several people with various forms of disability, and they were very productive people. They just needed to be trained correctly, and a lot of times they had the licensures necessary to do the work. But I think that's how it worked in workforce development, in that probably fight for representation of the disability community on the SA Ready to Work board, and then look at how we can expand those options to include folks that are falling outside either the targeted work jobs that they're trying to enforce or the demographic areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Garcia, would you like me to read it again?
Please, please.
Okay. With 13.2 of the San Antonians living with a disability, I'd like to hear your thoughts on some targeted efforts you would put into place to ensure there is equitable access to the workforce development programs.
Well, first of all, I think that every company that works, that has a business or a company here that should be able to employ any kind of disabled person that has the ability to contribute to that company. I think that, yes, I guess the San Antonio is a friendly city, and basically would be able to be able to partner with that company or that group. And if there are resources out there for us to use to partner with, then I think we need to utilize those resources that are available now and make them more profitable for the person that's working for that company, or to have them be trained the same exact way as those of the people that are actually working without disabilities. I think that we need to have I think I did Special Olympics a lot, and I was able to work with a lot of young men and women that basically they didn't see disability as a hindrance. They just saw the ability to compete. And I think if we give that same level playing field and we educate them, both sides, to help them move together as one, and not have to worry about any kind of a stop gap or any kind of a deficiency that may arise if something comes and it challenges that effort on both sides. I think we need to have a good educational apparatus in place to help both sides come together and work together, and make sure that both sides are happy, and we're able to give them a living wage and make sure they work together in unison. I mean, in concert rather as well. So, I mean, I think there's stuff out there that we can build upon, but I think right now there's a lot that's offered that we can still use as such right now.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, the next question is, where do you see room for improvement when it comes to identifying and meeting the needs of children and adults living with disabilities?
Well, I think first we should be more inclusive of them. I mean, one of the things I would like to do when I'm elected to city council is probably appoint a child with disability to San Antonio Youth Commission. I know my daughter served 4 years in that program, and it was a big impact on her. Again, this is one of those things that I'd have to probably come out to the disability community and see where they would think there would need to be more inclusion into our work, into our larger city community. I think a lot of them are integrated today into the system. I mean, there's quite a bit of folks that I work with on a daily basis that do have disability of some form or another, but certainly that's not probably representative of everybody. So I'd probably work with you guys to find out where I could be more inclusive towards that.
Okay, thank you so much. Would you like me to read the question
Yes,
again,
please.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you see room for improvement when it comes to identifying and meeting the needs of children and adults living with a disability?
Well, first off, you have to look past their disability and look at how they are as people. Look at them as people. That's one of the things these are people, and you got to be able to work with them and kind of give them extend that open hand that says, hey, we see past this because we're here to work together and make things work as a team. And I would at least have someone to appoint one of them, whoever it may be, to be part of my team, to kind of advocate for me and also give me the ability to work and to know more about what deficiencies are need to be met or meets or exceeds their needs and those out there that actually need that kind of help. I mean, I think we have to just bridge the gap and not worry about looking at them as having a disability. We look at them as people that basically are just like you and I, pay taxes. Taxes don't discriminate, and just kind of work with them in concert with whatever they need. That's the main thing, is we got to look at them as people. Bottom line, that's what they are. They're people. So
Thank you. Actually, now you're going to get the first question.
boy.
And this question is, what do you see as the pros and cons to emphasizing the disability lens alongside the racial and poverty lenses when examining and implementing equity measures and initiatives in San Antonio?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again? You're
Yes.
very low, so when you speak, it's very low. Hard to hear you.
Let me just make sure. Do you hear me better now?
A little bit, yeah. It just seems like it seems like it's low. I mean, I'm having a hard time a little bit just to I'm having to lean to the camera more
Okay,
often.
let me talk louder. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you see as the pros and cons to emphasizing the disability lens alongside the racial and poverty lenses when examining and implementing equity measures and initiatives in San Antonio?
I really see no cons. I see mostly I see the pros, the positive aspect of it, I guess. Like I said, just go back to what I said, is that, you've got to look at people as people and work with them on any level and make sure that they feel comfortable, and you're able to kind of bridge that gap with education, with outreach. And, I tell you,
I guess I'm going to expand it slightly and say, very often when we look at equity, we're looking at race. And what this question's really getting at is, how do you feel about adding disability to that lens?
Well, if we're going to go in that direction, I see no, when you talk about race, well, like I said, you have to be human. I don't see there are any barriers, because I'm trying to say, I don't think there's any barriers when it comes to race. Like I said, you got to you look at people as people. I'm just going to stick with that. That's my answer. You work with people as people and not worry about it, race, whatever it is that the stigmatisms that are out there right now. I think we look at people as people and we help them out as best we can. We work with them. We work in concert with the different apparatuses out there to make sure that things run smoothly. I mean, a negative, I don't know. I guess I really don't know how to answer the negative part, because I look at things in a very positive manner. I try to flip things and every negative needs to be flipped to a positive. So I really can't give it any kind of a negative answer about the cons. The pros, people are people. I mean, you got to just be able to work with people and move forward with whatever you have, and work in concert with that person in essence. So.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read the question again?
Now, let me take a stab at it. I think I understand what you're asking. I think when we're looking at things like equity, I would probably apply that lens as it comes to disability, for instance, on things like affordable housing for disabled people. I know it's one thing to have disabled housing that's in certain parts of town, but I think where we really need it, and this is where District 8 could probably help, is you need affordable housing for disabled people near job centers, job nodes, economic nodes, and probably near where there are high medical personnel. So I would look at something towards a private-public project where we could do a P3 program, where we could create an affordable housing home or affordable housing project, along with private developers that would benefit people with disabilities. Now, my wife is a physical therapist, and she's been practicing for 20 plus years. So, she's probably going to be my mentor in all this kind of thing, and how to improve the life of quality of life for people with physical disabilities and impairments in our communities. But I think, when it comes to things like affordable housing for people with disability, I would take off. I would include the equity lens in that picture. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question quite like you're
that's-
expecting.
No, that was good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and actually now you're going to get another question and you'll go first, Mr. Rodriguez. So what specific action do you think the city could take to improve hiring opportunities for persons with disabilities?
Improve what? I'm sorry, what type of opportunities?
Hiring
Oh.
opportunities, work opportunities.
Sure, I think they've already got systems in place where they look at folks like this. I don't know. I'd have to investigate that directly to see what they're doing right now. You know, I have a multicultural, multi-capable team. I hire my companies. I've always hired the best people for the work, and with regard, irregardless to race, color, creed, whatever. So I think if you present people with quality characteristics and like values, then they'd be good employees. I think the city's a little different. It should lead the way in probably employing people with disabilities. So I'd examine that once I got into office.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, would you like me to repeat that question?
Please, yes.
What
Yes, ma'am.
specific action do you think the city should take to improve hiring opportunities for persons with disabilities?
Well, and I'll deflect back to my original, what I said earlier, is that you treat them like a person, you know, connectivity with an individual, devoid of their handicap or their disabilities. To me, it's a person, and whatever's out there right now, I would partner with whatever company is out there to hire this individual, not based on how they are as a person, their merit, and some people, you know, they just want to be treated the right way, just treated as an individual, as a human being, and not looked at when it comes to having a disability. I've worked with disabled veterans, and when it comes to you know, I would say give the name, a guy named JP Lane. I did his music video. He's disabled. He's disabled. He has no legs. They got blown off in his MRAP. So, and he sees it as it, you know, I'm here, and he got trached. And so now he sings, and he doesn't see his injuries as something stopping him. So those people don't see the injuries or whatever they were born with as a stop. They see it as a push me forward and let me thrive when it comes to making things work, and let me thrive in my job. So I think I would say treat them as a human being, and they will shine. You'd be surprised how many people will shine when it comes to working through their disability, working through their injury, working through whatever it is they have. Got a friend right now who started walking for the first time in a year, who suffered a heart attack 2 years ago, and she's a go get 'em kind of lady. And it's just the way people are. They don't stop, and they want to work, and they want to be able to be functional and be able to show the world that, hey, I may have a disability, but I'm still a human being. So there's stuff out there to help on both sides. You partner with the company, you partner with that business, and say, hey, here we have maybe the next CFO. You know, who knows? But they don't look at disability as a disability. They look at it as a challenge, and they've made it this far, and they're going to keep on going. So that's how I see that. It's not a disability. It's something to push them forward and make them a lot more, you know.
I'm going to dig down on this one a little bit, because we know that research is out there that people with disabilities don't get hired at the same rate, even if they have the same qualifications. They aren't hired at the same rate as able-bodied candidates. So obviously there's a barrier to employment if we look at it that way. Is there anything specifically you would do or want to do if you got into District 8 that would break down those barriers for people with disabilities who are qualified candidates?
Well, as I said, you know, as your city councilman, I would make sure that any company that's out there afford that individual the opportunity to prove them wrong or prove them right. That's what you got to do. And I think that it's up to the individual. And there's a lot of good-hearted Christian faith-based people out there that don't look at the disability, look at the person. And then if when they contribute, they know they're going to get 110% because that person has something to prove to themselves and to the people out there that they're working for and working with. I've worked with, like I said, people And it comes to video production. You know, I have worked with a gentleman who didn't have any legs, and he was in a wheelchair bound, but he didn't look at that way. He works his butt off. I met a kid, a younger gentleman who worked for the Scorpions out there at the stadium. And I know him from a long time ago, and he's out there taking tickets, I think he's going somewhere. He's a little bit older now, but he's been moving up on the different places that I've seen him work at. So it's attitude. In Español, es el actitud que tienes una persona is what it is. It's the attitude one has for themselves and for the job they want to work for. And the business has to understand that, hey, these people will bust their butts for you, and they won't let that hold them back. So yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to add to my question?
Sure, Jane. I think maybe what we could look at is the SA Ready to Work plan. I know it's targeted towards specific industries, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, whatnot. But if we can include some type of program within the framework of that program that included folks with disabilities that were outside of those respective job nodes that they wanted to create these jobs at. I think that's how the city could work with that. And also it could be an employer. It could be one of the employers. I know that SA Ready to Work is teaming up with several large corporations in San Antonio to hire people from these programs. So maybe the city could be the leader in one of those type of programs. I think that's how we can probably work effectively as a city. And as city councilman, we would fight to make sure that we had inclusion of disabled folks that were not fitting specifically within either the geographic areas that they wanted to affect, or also those job professions that they're looking to enhance. So that's how I would work with the city.
May I add something? Is that possible or no?
Yes, of course.
I think a lot of the people, they want to be in the forefront and they want to shine in the public eye. They want to, some of those people want to be, they want to show people that they've been able to overcome their disability. And a lot of those people, they want to show people face to face, in groups, in crowds. When it comes to companies, I'm not sure for certain, but I think that there's one gentleman that's out there right now that, he's talking to people left and right, and he has no limbs at all. And they want to be in the forefront and show people that, hey, I don't need to be stuck behind a desk. I want to be in the forefront and show people in point to point, face to face, and how I've overcome my disability. That's my whole thing, is that I think a lot of people want to they want to be treated as a human being and shine and show people how they thrive as a person more than anything else.
I agree, but I also think that businesses should want to shine and be open to hiring people with disabilities at an equal rate, qualified.
I agree with that 100%.
Qualified candidates. Okay, so we're going to move on to question 9. Question 9 will go to you, Mr. Garcia, first. So how do you plan to advocate for the disability community during the current and future COVID relief efforts?
Well, that's a very good question. I would show the world and the people out there that, how I advocate for these people is that, like I said, you got to put a face to the individual, when it comes to, I think that there's a lot of scare tactics out there to kind of keep a mask on. Well, you have to keep a mask on, but it showed that these people are people. Like I said, I'm gonna have to just defer back that how I partner with them and how I partner with businesses and stuff is to show that give them a shot. Everyone deserves a shot to doing something. And I would definitely advocate, and I've advocated for, when I was a kid working Special Olympics, I advocated for a young man, that had issues when it came to running a race. And I told the judge or whoever the gentleman was that, hey, this guy it was my fault that he was late to his race. So I think I would advocate and just kind of let the people know that these are individuals that have feelings and are human beings also, and they need someone to step up. I'll step up for that person. I will advocate for that person 100% because that's just who I am. I mean, like I said, I have a learning disability. I have ADD and I was on medication, but I've bridged that gap and I moved forward, and I'm who I am today because I've been able to grow past that disability. But people who have a physical disability as opposed to just like an internal disability, they need to be given a shot. And I will take that mantle and walk and say, I will walk in your shoes and I will help you out as much as I can. And I will advocate for you every single day because that's just who I am. That's how I am as a person. I will advocate, and as your city councilman, I will move forward and make sure that individual has someone has their back 100%. And that's how I am. I would have their back and make sure that they're given a fair shake 100%. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read the question again?
No, I think I understand. I'm going to advocate, I guess that's what I'm going to do. I think what I would look at is how we can look at existing services. I know Via Trans is very important to this community. It's about 2% of Via ridership, but it runs about 20% of their transportation budget. So there's always talk about how do they save costs on that. I think a Via Trans ride is about $30 per person. So of course I would advocate that certainly that budget does not need to be cut. Maybe with the advent of this new 1/8 cent tax, there might be opportunity, along with some additional federal grants. There's quite a bit of federal grants coming down for COVID relief and economic recovery and even infrastructure expenses. We'd look for opportunities to take those federal dollars and enhance the sidewalks and streets and even the lighting that we discussed earlier. That's how I would advocate for the disability community. And then maybe even looking at how VIA can expand its Via Trans services. I know the contention is how do you do it outside 1604? So we'd have to examine that. And again, you know, I'm going to be open and listening to everything. I mean, I would expect you guys to come to me and tell me this is how these services can improve, and we'd have to figure out how we can do it. So those are some of the practical things I would work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, question 10 goes back to Mr. Rodriguez. How would you address the challenges for building, repairing sidewalks to improve the walkability and accessibility of our city?
Okay, man, you guys have more questions than the editorial board. Well, again, the infrastructure, how it expands sidewalks and increase accessibility, we'd have to look at the budget as it's coming up and where those deficiencies are to see where we'd make those type of improvements. Is that getting into the gist of your question?
Yeah, I mean, improving and repair, I mean, building, repairing, we have some, I mean, not so much in District 8, but in some parts of the city, there are streets with no sidewalks. And, you know, what do we do? What do we do about that?
Sure. Well, when I was on the planning commission, I voted for complete streets. Now I know that had a lot to do with biking lanes, but there are also alternative forms of transportation. It widens sidewalks. So I would examine that, and anywhere possible when we were upgrading streets or sidewalks. Now you're right, District 8, we don't have a lot of those sidewalks. Maybe in the lower part of the district, we do have some roads that do require sidewalks. So I'd look investigating and bringing those things up. I'd also look at the Planning Commission currently is going through new code compliance upgrades. So I'd look at to see if there were anything we could improve on that thing. Now there are some neighborhoods that don't even want sidewalks. So we'd have to look at them and see what we can do with those guys. So that's kind of how I'd approach that.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Garcia, would you like me to read the question again?
Please.
Okay, how would you address the challenges for building and repairing sidewalks to improve the walkability and accessibility of our city?
Well, that's a good question, and I would say this is that we'd have to look for people that would we'd have to hire people that live and then operate within the city and not outsource it to another state or outsource it to another area outside the city limits. I think that the biggest thing that I've seen in block walking is that there's been places where there are no sidewalks. And I think that's a disservice to people who are in wheelchairs, who have no access, who can't move from one place to the other and in their neighborhoods. And I think that's wrong. I think that but it's going to boils down to money. And I have to say we have to look at the planning and how what's earmarked for those sidewalks to be put in place. But I think that we're in the 21st century. We're in 2021, and there are streets that in my city, in our district, that have no sidewalks or lack of sidewalks. And I think that I believe that we need to have accessibility so you can walk from stem to stern anywhere in the district without having to worry about getting on the pavement, the roads, or going through grass to get to the other part of the sidewalk. I think it's a disservice. And I think we have to look at that. And I would work with you guys as well to make sure that we sit down with a city planner or the entity that approves those dollars. And if there's money available, we spend it. If we not raise taxes on and to what we use the money that's available for infrastructure, so we can make sure that sidewalks are available to move anywhere freely, because that's the biggest thing. Is that I've seen people that get on the road, middle of the road in their motorized chairs, and I think that's wrong. They need to be able to move on the sidewalk in their neighborhoods and not have to get off onto the street where it's a danger to them. But I would partner with you guys to make sure that we have streets and accessibility to everywhere that's in the district. There's no excuse for 2021 with property or patches of in neighborhoods that have no sidewalks. We need to have sidewalks everywhere. That's my 2 cents. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you. As I said to a media person the other day, when you see a person in a wheelchair in the street, it's not because they want to be there. They have no choice to navigate that area, wherever that area is. So thank you for your responses. I know it seems like we've been doing this for hours, but we haven't. So I've got a few more questions. If you can hang in there, we're supposed to have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So I'm glad that we've got a good conversation going. So this question is for Mr. Garcia. In what ways will you use city resources to create housing options that are both affordable and accessible for San Antonians with disabilities?
Well, first, I would partner with any number of contractors that are here in the city that aren't going to cost an arm and a leg, and I would partner with them. And like I said, I worked with one entity. It was a nonprofit that built houses from the ground up for the disabled, veterans included. And I would partner with someone like that would be able to know what the individual needs. What is the biggest stop gap for that individual? What stops them from moving around? We worked with a gentleman who, like I said, another gentleman who had lost both his legs in the military, and we widened up the kitchen. We lowered the sink, we lowered the cabinets, and we had actually drawers come down where he had the ability to stand up and even in his wheelchair, be able to reach his dishes, put them in the sink. His wife helped out too, and we had the hallways lengthened or I guess widened. So I would partner with people that know how to work with and have the knowledge on how to build, create, and make sure that that's available to anybody that has that has the need for it, but make sure the dollars are there and not just use grants. I think we used a couple of grants. We used a couple of different vendors that helped out with putting those dollars behind the build, and work with people that will donate. It was a nonprofit I worked with, and I did a video for them, and we showed the progression of how that house was transformed so this man could move around, and how his kids had a little cubby holes they could play in, and he could have them around him as well, and they could help out whenever he had to do dishes and get to his little laundry room and stuff like that. So we got to partner with individuals who know how to build, create, and implement those creative solutions for the people that have disabilities, and make sure it's equitable, and make sure it's cost efficient, and look for donations. Look for people. That's what happened. It was mostly donated materials, donated water system, water heater, and partner with all the individuals that we had. I think we had like 10 vendors that contributed to this individual's rebuild or remodel. And that's what I would do as such, working with this nonprofit. I can't think the name off the top of my head, but anyway, they did a couple of houses, and they've done stuff around the state as well. But they absolutely work with individuals who have that understanding of what to do and make it where it's possible for that person to have accessibility as such. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read that question again?
No, I think I understand that. And quite honestly, I think I I spoke about affordable housing for disabled folks in an earlier question. Let me expand on on the last question. I think one thing I'd also work with developers that were developing plan unit developments in the extraterritorial jurisdiction to ensure that the disability transportation was considered within their own respective neighborhoods. Now, how it work with affordable housing for disabled folks is I would look at existing opportunities, for instance, opportunity zones that provide tax incentives for investors and developers to build in certain parts of town. Now, I think in about 5 or 6 years, they'll be opening that up again to identify additional opportunity zones. So I'd look for opportunities for that to happen in District 8. Then I'd also look for public-private partnerships to work with the developers in private facility corporations or public facility corporations to create tax incentives for developers to develop these kind of projects. Now, I would include that in addition to some probably mixed-use development also. I think those are becoming very popular, having walkable, livable communities, and I don't think that's why I don't think the disabled community should be excluded from that. But I think when they construct these PFCs or public facility corporation projects, they should have a disabled community in mind. So that's what I'd work with, PPPs.
So I'm going to ask this question just based on your response, Mr. Rodriguez, and I'm going to ask Mr. Garcia the same question. So we have universal design elements that the city has, but only on projects, publicly funded projects, 50,000 and above. As you know, we have old housing stock, and if you go around the neighborhoods, you can see ramps being attached to homes. How would you be for updating the universal design or adding more universal design elements to new builds for single dwelling homes?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we need to upgrade homes in that way. And ultimately, the city council has approval of certain projects. And if private developers want to upgrade homes or they're looking for permits, and then that's something that we could probably insist on. Yeah, definitely. I'd look into doing those kind of things.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Same question to you, Mr. Garcia. Would you be for increasing the elements, the universal design elements in San Antonio to include single homes?
Yeah, yes, to your question, yes, I would.
Great, thank you. Okay, question number 11. It probably feels like 1100, but it's not. It's only question 11. So this question will go to Mr. Garcia first. In what ways will you use the city's resources to create options? Oh, nope, I already said that one. That was the one we just did. So let me cross that one off. What steps will you take to ensure additional services are provided when someone with a disability is arrested, to include mental health, one-to-one support, advocate assignments, and ongoing communication with the family?
Well, first I'd find out why the police officer arrested the individual, and I would educate that police officer to understand that not every single encounter is the same way as a person who doesn't have a disability. I think education here is the biggest facet that must be looked at completely. There has been way too many instances where individuals who have been mistreated by an arresting officer, and not knowing the situation and not knowing why the person is acting the way they are. And I think it's the biggest thing is that I would extend every single courtesy to that individual, and have. I mean, I think I would at some point. I think the officer would have to at least be educated and understand that every situation be treated differently. I think that our first responders are they're taxed, but they also need to know that you can't treat every single situation the way the previous situation. And individuals who are disabled, they're unfortunately they fall by the wayside, and people don't know that you can't just manhandle someone. I say the same thing goes with whenever we go through TSA. We way too many videos out there of children in wheelchairs being manhandled by TSA agents because they're in a wheelchair, and they're traumatized as it is because they're flying. They're traumatized as it is when it comes to the encounter. We just need to have someone understand that you can't treat every single, it's a case by case basis. And that's, I guess that's a canned answer, but there needs to be a lot of outreach and education when it comes to what's going on when a police officer an arresting officer comes up, and they need to call EMS to also assist in the actual call. They should do so, because not every single person, a lot of people need to have white gloves and need to be treated with white gloves and treated very gingerly, and not just assume that there's someone that's doing something wrong. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we have to have education on both sides, but the individual who's making the arrest needs to understand that you don't treat every single person the way you treat every person. You have to, a vagrant is a vagrant. If he's stealing a car, well, then that guy has got a problem. You need to arrest him and make sure he goes to jail. But if a person's out there and you don't know what's going on, and if you can't communicate, then you find someone, bring them in the conversation right then and there, so they can communicate with that individual and calm the waters and move forward, and make sure that individual they may be dehydrated, they may need something medically wrong with them, they may need somebody to hold on to them and give them that nurturing at that point in time, not down 5 hours later, 2 hours later, 20 minutes later, right then and there. If you assess it, you make sure there's an answer to what's going on, and you move forward in the right manner when it comes to that kind of situation. And it should be on a case by case basis. But education is got to be pivotal right now. We're living in such a polarized world when it comes to our police department, and we need to have an understanding that education is important for that officer to know that what's happening with that individual. They may not know it, but they got to assess it, and then bring in the right materials and the right personnel to actually calm the waters and make things much more easier and ease for both sides. So,
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read the question again, or?
Yeah, yes, if you could, please.
Yes. What steps will you take to ensure additional services are provided when someone with disabilities is arrested, to include mental health 101 support, advocate assignments, and ongoing communications with the family?
Sure. My wife, part of her job is she's a care navigator. So folks that are coming out of a hospital system, it's very complicated to attach all the different services that our people need when they leave a hospital system, whether it's follow-on doctor visits, pharmacy, durable medical equipment, even help, nursing help or physical therapy help. I know Councilman Perry has got a similar pilot project going on now in District 10, where they do fund a counselor that helps people with mental illness navigate this complex environment that they are in, of how to access those kind of services. So I would be open, once elected, to funding something like that within the district, to help somebody navigate the complex services that people are entitled to. For veterans, there's quite a bit of veteran homeless, and unfortunately that's connected a lot with mental illness. A lot of times it's enrolling them in the appropriate VA benefit programs. And I know that the Bexar County has a program like that. So maybe this navigator can connect that disabled veteran with the Bexar County a department that handles that kind of thing. So I'd be open to funding something like that within the city council district.
This is a really good question. I didn't raise this out, so I'm not right.
I'm sorry, you're coming out really garbled on my.
Garbled.
yeah,
Okay.
very good.
Can you hear me now? Is that better? Great. Like when it comes to like an hour on this thing, it seems to do whatever it wants in noise. But this next question is a solid question, because it really does talk about, how do you, in your office, if you get to be District 8 council person, what is your plan to involve the disability community in the decision-making process? What would that look like?
Here's a question too.
It's going to be
the first thing I would do was meet with you people and see where the deficiencies are right now and what you want to see, how to be included in those. I mean, I'm just a naturally inclusive person, so I don't think that would be an issue on my side. But I just like any other voter, you deserve to be heard. And I would see myself having probably regular meetings with your associations, probably you're probably going to have a lot of little committees that are split out to work for certain agenda items. So I would have an open door in addressing those things. A lot of this job is balance. You mentioned something about single family homes and upgrading those for disabled folks. Well, I'm a commercial real estate agent by trade, so that's not going to make me very popular in the real estate committee, right? So we've got to figure out how do we balance those kind of things. But I want to assure you that I'm an open-minded person. I'm empathetic to what you guys are experiencing and how we can help your community. And I think and I'm not a politician by trade, I'm a business guy. So if it makes sense to me, then you can count on me for advocating for those issues.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, same question. Do you want me to read it?
No, that's fine. I would no, ma'am. Thank you though. I would first offer, I would offer an olive branch from the jump, just to meet with you guys, and then meet on a regular basis, and see how we can work together in concert when it comes to me while I'm on city council, because I think the biggest thing is that you have to put yourself out there to kind of communicate in a point-to-point basis. And I think that's the biggest thing right now is communication. We have a lack of communication in various levels within our city government. And I think that we have to partner with everyone that we meet and we work with, and not have something happen to then partner with that person. We have to meet with them immediately and to extend an olive branch. And just, I'd even hire someone to be on my staff to actually, stay in my ear to give me an earful if we need to get something done immediately, so we can solve any issues we may have. So that's my biggest thing, is that I think it's a point-to-point conversation, a point-to-point meeting on a regular basis. That's just the way I work. I want to be able to have some real-time information right then and there if there's an issue that we have to address right then and there, and then move forward with it. So that's what my office would do. And I would definitely, I would advocate and make sure that we have a concerted effort that it works, and we make things, amicable between both of us, that we work together immediately. I think that's the biggest thing right now. Like I said, I repeat myself, but communication is everything for me right now, is that we have to have a solid line of communication within the office, and then with each entity we meet, interact with, and move forward together with. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got time for possibly one more question, and you're like, no. Yes, one more question. And this one is about transportation, because that's important for everybody, but especially important for people with disabilities. So currently, VIA's paratransit services cover those living within 3/4 of a mile of a traditional bus line, and ride-sharing options are not accessible. What legislation, policy, or use of city resources would you champion to influence the expansion of accessible, affordable, and efficient transportation options for those living with disabilities outside the mandated ViaTrans service areas? And I think that's going to go to Mr. Garcia.
Well, yes, ma'am. First off, I would partner with the surrounding municipalities that work with San Antonio, that are closely knit together, and we at no additional charge or cost, we find a way to supplement whatever that cost would be for that usage. I think we're still interconnected when it comes to proximity. That the Helotuses, the Shirts, the Cibolos, they're close enough to where we can partner and have a line of a concerted effort to make sure that we have a line of communication when it comes to moving people from point A to point B without cost. I'm sure there'll be some kind of cost, but we don't pass that along to the individual who we are helping out, and getting them to where they need to be. I think that's, and I would champion is I would have it where we solve the issue before it becomes an issue, and we have to reach our hand out and to meet with these individuals, these different municipalities, so that they can also have that for themselves as well. I think we're so connected technologically that we have to also look at that we are in, with a 200-mile radius, 100-mile radius We have a lot of small municipalities that we can lean upon, and give them, extend the same courtesy. I think that's what we got to do. Is we have to come together as one and not worry about the distances. If someone needs help, we help them out. We have to. We can't. No one should be left behind and neglected when it comes to what's happening right now. We're too interconnected digitally that we should be able to use whatever resources we have that are been paid for, and not be an extra charge or an extra cost to whichever individual municipality there is. And if we have to, then we have I don't know, we just basically just need to work in concert together and solve the problem when it comes to transportation. I think that's that's simplistic. I work on a very simplistic thing because I streamline things. I don't have time to, we have to get into the minutia of things. Sorry, I just got some brand new teeth in. The minutia of things, then we approach it that way. But if we have to get something done, then we partner, move together, and streamline it and make sure that that person does not have to worry about. The less they have to worry about, the better off we are, and the better off they are, to make sure that, hey, someone cares about me and treat me like a person. I'm going to be able to pick you up. And even if it's a ride share kind of apparatus, we get them to where they need to go and move on. That's my answer. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like me to read it again, or are you good?
Yes, please. I think I understood it, but I want to make sure I get it right.
Currently, via paratransit services cover only those living within 3/4 of a mile of a traditional bus line, and ride-sharing options are not accessible. What legislation, policy, or use of city resources would you champion to influence the expansion of accessible, affordable, and efficient transportation options for those living with disabilities outside the mandated Via Trans service areas?
Sure. Well, like we mentioned earlier, Via Trans service is 2% of the ridership of Via and 20% of the cost. So we have to have somebody that's willing to stand up for that battle for budget hawks, right? It's not only a mobility issue for folks with disability, but an economic issue. I know when I owned healthcare companies, folks were taking Via Trans to doctor's office, or they were going to go to local shopping centers or whatnot. So they were spending money. Disabled people have wallets, and they're spending money into the economy. I think we just approved this 1/8 cent tax that took away from the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program and the Linear Creekways, which is another thing that we're going to figure out how we're going to need to fund that. But after it's done with SA to Ready to Work, it shifts over to Via, the 1/8 sales tax, in perpetuity. So it'll be on forever and ever and ever, unless the voters decide to take it off. I think the conversation should be happening now, because before you know it, 3 or 4 years will happen. We should be talking about how we're going to enhance transportation into these areas that you're concerned about, that we're concerned about, to increase mobility options for our disabled population. Another thing we can look at is sort of Via improvements. I know a big conversation has been a lot about this last mile transportation. So somebody gets off at a bus stop, they have another mile to go to their work, or they go to their home or whatnot, that last mile. And how they've been having this conversation has been with things like bikes, scooters, whatnot. We could look at how do we incorporate probably modes of transportation that are friendly towards disabled folks, that incorporates maybe sitting mechanisms, electric vehicles, or something like that. But that's how I would advocate for those kind of things. But again, I'd need you guys to push me in that direction and tell me where I need to be looking at.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for answering these questions. If any of our participants have a question, please pop it in the chat. But I want to thank you for doing this, because the disability community is the largest minority in the United States, and it's the only minority that anyone can join anytime. So these things, these issues matter to us, and it's good to hear that you're running, and how you look at how you can help the disability community get a level playing field. So really do appreciate you being here. And it's 7:54, so I think that's enough grilling for one night. But again, thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am.